Good evening and welcome back, and thank you for joining us for the second episode of Caribbean Angles, where we discuss Caribbean family issues each and every Thursday. I'm your host, Brittany Morrison, and a very special welcome to you, our viewers online, and to my lovely guest, social worker Miss Cassandra Bolton, sex therapist Miss Devonay Davidson, and pastor Mr. Christopher Drummond. How are you all doing tonight?
Well, it has been a
Thanks for having
hectic
me.
week, but God is good.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. Good to know that y'all are okay. So, in this week's episode, we will discuss the topic. There are more advantages than disadvantages to sexual abstinence in a relationship. So that we can get an understanding. So, refraining from sex is commonly practiced in cultures over the world, not only in the Caribbean. People abstain from sex for religious and other reasons, including prevention of pregnancy and sexually transmitted diseases. Some persons may have resolved to abstain from sex this year, just as a personal choice or self-gratification based on their morals and values. You may be wondering what is abstinence? Well, according to Heather White, abstinence means refraining from sexual contact of any sort, including genital intercourse, oral sex, anal sex, dry sex, mutual masturbation, or any other physically intimate activity done for the purpose of sexual satisfaction. Remember, abstinence makes sense. Well, we will hear more about this topic from our guest, but just before we do so, let's hear what the members of the public has to say.
Do you believe that there are more advantages than disadvantages to sexual abstinence in a relationship?
No, I'm of the opinion that once you're in a relationship, sex and sexual pleasures must be involved. Abstinence ends at courtship for me. And various articles support that claim. For instance, Mr. Abraham Maslow, on his hierarchy of needs, he clearly stated that intimacy within relationships forms is a major factor within or to gain self-actualization. So intimacy and abstinence, they don't go hand in hand within a relationship. I'm of the opinion that abstinence within a relationship has a greater negative impact due to factors such as it increases the risk of infidelity from a partner within that relationship. It can lead to health issues such as depression and anxiety. And also, it can indirectly reduce the population growth, as it has a direct and indirect effect on the GDP of any country. Reason being, not having sex creates or removes the likeliness of having a child, which will slow down population growth. So I do believe once you're in a relationship, let sex be free.
Good afternoon. My name is Susan Ferguson. I do believe that abstinence has an advantage because for females, however, they would not catch a pregnancy. They would not become pregnant because they abstain from having sex. But once you're not abstain and you're totally involved in sexual activity, then you know that you're liable of getting pregnant. Anything can happen, right? But the advantage is that once you abstain from having sex as a female, you're 100% sure that you would not get pregnant. However, there are other diseases as well that once you abstain from having sex, you won't get caught in such situation. However, not only that, but being in a relationship and you actually discuss with your partner that you would like to even get to know them better, understand each other's perspective, you know, likes and dislikes and all of that. That helps. That stands at an advantage as well for you, you know, being abstinence. You know, you don't want to get involved sexually. You just want to get to know each other so that you can then develop this togetherness before really having sex. So abstinence do make sense.
Interesting views from the people as they believe, yes, there are more advantages than disadvantages to sexual abstinence in a relationship. Miss, so Miss Bolton, first question to you and to the rest of the panelists. Do you agree or disagree that there are more advantages than disadvantages to sexual abstinence in a relationship?
Yes, I do agree.
Okay.
There are more advantages than, based on my research, there are more advantages, and it makes sense.
Ms. Davidson?
Well, I will disagree, but even though there are pros and cons, but I will still disagree and think that there are more disadvantages than advantages of abstinence.
Mr. Drummond?
Well, I would have the opinion that there are both disadvantages and advantages, but the advantages weigh more in my mind concerning the issue.
Okay, good to know. So we'll just have a short break, and then when we come back, we'll hear more about abstinence in a relationship.
COVID-19, I know the only virus I spread, so please keep this in your head. HIV, STIs are roam round, yeah, people still a get infected. On top of that, you know how to deal with no pregnancy, no wiggle unwanted. So stock up with your condoms and ensure them not done. Every time you're ready for your fun, just stand on your yard with your condom. Stay inside, stay covered when you're locked down. Stand on your yard with your condom. And stay COVID free and STI free when it's all done.
A message from the National Family Planning Board.
Welcome back, guys, as we continue to talk about sexual abstinence. Miss Bolton, since you agree that there are more advantages than disadvantages, can you tell us about the advantages of sexual abstinence?
As human beings, it is great that we can explore our sexuality. However, it has to be a conscious decision one makes to abstain, and that requires a lot of willpower. Benefits of abstinence. It is 100% effective in prevention of pregnancy and sexually transmitted diseases. No unwanted pregnancy. As you may be working on achieving your goals, attaining your education, or getting your career. Latex condoms can help to prevent some STDs. However, they are not all 100% effective as abstinence is. And they don't prevent HPV, gonorrhea, or genital herpes, among other STDs. When you abstain, you are 100% sure that none of these things can affect you. It allows you to wait until you are ready for a sexual relationship, as you might not want to be physical or mental, or you might not be physical, mentally, or emotionally stable or ready to be so actively involved sexually or intimately, as there is so much more great things about you than sex that your partner can find out about you. You can be dating, and while getting to know the person, you realize that this is not the person that you really want to spend, so much of your time with. And, you might find yourself indulge and get involved sexually. And then when the breakup happens, then there's a lot of chances of depression and unstable mental health. Abstinence also allows you to have fun with romantic partners without sexual involvement. And for teenagers, there's nothing to hide from your parents or your friends. It is just an open mutual relationship where you're just enjoying yourself as a teen.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that because, sex is a distraction. So, and abstinence helps to keep their minds clear. So with them having sex at such a young age, they will be distracted. Can continue.
Statistics also shows that teens who practice sexual abstinence are likely to do better in school, twice likely to graduate from college. Abstaining allows you to stay true to your moral or religious beliefs and values. It is best to abstain and follow doctor's advice during an illness or while treating an infection like a vaginal infection. It's best you abstain. Statistics have shown that almost 60,000 birth to teenagers pregnancy over the last decade between 2009 to 2019. How often persons have sex also changes over time. 18% of all births in Jamaica occurs to teenagers. So while if they were abstaining, then we would have a lesser percentage rate. In the US, 2-3% of young unmarried women are not financially stable, with 25% of them going on welfare within 3 years of giving birth. 46% of teenage girls and 22% of boys who gets involved sexually before the age of 15 have been involved in a pregnancy situation. 30% of teenage girls who drop out of high school is a result of pregnancy. So abstinence is a good thing to do, and it allows for a lot of stuff to not, be happening to you.
Right. And also with the statistics that I gave, it shows that those are some main reasons why the poverty in our country continues to happen.
Yes, but
So
if
when
they practice
you
safe
can
sex
take,
as well, it can
you
prevent
can take every,
unwanted pregnancy.
yes, you can take every precaution when you decide to get involved sexually. However, things can still go wrong. Being continuously abstinent is the only way to be 100% safe from pregnancy and STDs and other side effects. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for those points. So that our viewers will be educated. Miss Davidson, sorry, you disagree. So tell us a bit about the disadvantages of sexual abstinence in a relationship.
All right, so the cons about not having sex, right? It can leave you in depression, loneliness, lack of physical touch. Lack of physical touch meaning you're at home, you're just in the bed by yourself. While if you had a partner now, you come from work, you feel stressed, you could at least rub his hand through your head, your hair, give you a little massage just to get you relaxed. All right, so lose motivation. You might be at work at that, and you have no urge to do anything. You just go to work and just build. But while if you had a partner now and you had some morning sex boosts you. So you would just keep you alive and you would be able to function better in the morning.
Have a lot of energy throughout the day.
Right. So research showed that having regular sex can result in certain health benefits, as in reduced blood pressure, lower risk, stress level, less risk of cardiovascular. So other statistics, so it has shown that reducing pancreatic cancer. So early study from 2004 published in the National Institution of Health, socio-demographic correlates sexualness among Americans with self-reported happiness level. Evidence from the U.S. General Social Survey found that high frequency of ejaculation may reduce the risk of prostate cancer. So having regular sex can help you to resolve that. So even in investigating over 30,000 males, how often they ejaculate through sex at different points in their life. The ones that ejaculate more than 21 times per month at lower risk of prostate cancer than the males among who ejaculate 4 to 7 times per month. Also, another stat, in 2009, study showed that the effect of intimacy on a person who don't have sex, it also trigger and release oxytocin and also other feel-good hormones which are responsible for the stress-reducing effects. It also helps with improving of sleep. So as I said before, it helps you to relax. It relaxes your mind. So once you're having real good sex, not just sex, sex where you know you connect with the person, you will have a more relaxed day and night. Not just day, also night. So according to the National Sleep Foundation, suggests that sexual activity has hormonal benefits for sleep after an organism and hormone called prolactin start to circulate, induces feeling of satisfaction and relaxation. So all of that now just by having little sex. So that's why I will stick more to the side, the disadvantages, sorry, to say that when you're not having sex, you're not more.
Yeah, they won't get to experience all of that.
Right. So I will stick to having sex, having safe sex would be good for your day. Thank you.
Okay. Good that you can share that with us. Mr. German, pastor in the house. So tell us a bit of what you think about the discussion so far. Your view.
Okay, so far the discussion has been very educated. You know, it has opened up my eyes. The researchers have opened up my eyes to the facts that what abstinence can do and what the disadvantages of not having sex can do.
Yeah.
But as a man of the cloth, it is my responsibility to preach the word of God.
Mm-hmm.
And when it comes on to sex, I do not let it become a taboo for my congregation, right? Because a lot of times persons hold sex as a taboo. So listening to the discussion, I believe there is a mixture of advantages and disadvantages. I don't want to sound too secular though for the disadvantages, but I lean more to the advantages. And in terms of
As long
that,
as they're married before, you know.
right. And in terms of the advantages of abstinence, we more like to pinpoint a certain demographic, like for the youth, the younger ones in schools and so forth, which is good because they are in school, right? And research has shown there are a lot of unwanted teenage pregnancies in our country. And I mean, abstinence for them at this time, it is indeed a very good thing for them to practice, you know, because all of us have choices, and even our young ones have choices, our teenagers, that is. So it is very good for them to practice abstinence now. I mean, there are so many things that they can do to take up their time at this time, in this young stage of their lives. You know what I mean? So abstinence, the advantage is, yes, it prevents from unwanted pregnancies, STI, STD, HIV, AIDS. You know what I mean? It prevents them from having guilt. Because as a pastor, I have counseled some persons, young persons that is, and even persons in the church who may have strayed on that path, and speaking to them about the issue, they more talk about that guilty feeling, or that feeling of shame, you know. So
Sorry, not to cut
As
you
you
though.
said that, sir, Mr. Okay, go ahead.
you can go ahead.
All right. Sorry, not to cut you, but what about the ones that they want to have children? They want to have children, but they're in the church, they're Christians, they can't find an husband, but they choose to, come out of the church, go to a child, and then return to the church. How you deal with those type of persons in your church?
Well, honestly, everybody has a choice, and it is not me, the person, or the spiritual leader for my flock to judge. Only God will judge. But I can only give the instructions concerning what He ordains or what He says.
And try help
As I
them,
said
guide them on the
before,
right path. Go ahead,
That
Mr.
is it.
Fulton.
okay,
But
so Russell Wilson, an accomplished, attractive athlete, and his girlfriend Ciara, who is a singer, but what they dated for more than a year before they finally decided on getting married, and they made a vow amongst themselves that they would abstain from sex. Russell Wilson was a devoted Christian, and she told E! News that it was a great. Ciara told the E! News that it was a great challenge, but it helped to build their relationship. Abstinence is not a bad thing. It just helps you to know yourself, probably to get to grow and know your partner more. So you might be sexually active before, but depending on what you're pursuing, you decide to take a time of abstinence, which it can happen. It just that person's will make positive moves towards their life as they abstain.
Right.
right. And then I think it is befitting to share my part in some biblical
Yes,
perspective
sir,
of
you
it,
can go
as
ahead
I
and do
have
that
heard
now.
the panel lists share their researches, right? So in First Corinthians chapter 10, it says, we must not indulge in sexual immorality, as some of them did, and 23,000 fell in a single day. So, I mean, this is talking about the ancient Israel of old, that they did promiscuous sexual immoral things, that at the end, 23,000 of them fell in one single day. And this is found in Corinthians 10, verse 8. And Galatians 5, verse 19 says, when you follow the desires of your sinful nature, the results are very clear, right? Sexual immorality, impurity, and lustful pleasures. So those are the sinful nature, the carnal mind that lusts after these things. And then Ephesians chapter 5, verse 3 says, let there be no sexual immorality, impurity, or greed among you. Such sins have no place among God's people. No, I mean, a lot of times when we talk about sexual immorality in the church, we like to point our fingers on Christians, right? But it goes for persons out there in the world, right? And God instruction, even for those persons out there in the world, they should get married. And when I speak of married, I'm speaking of male and female in that context, right?
Okay, thank you. So we'll take another break and then we'll be back to now wrap up the discussion and so on.
Yo, Shawnee boss, FIFA later.
No, no, boss.
One thing alone keep man from game, you know. Woman.
Go easy, man. But yeah, I go make a link.
You strap?
Mom think pan like my G. It makes sense. But sex can wait still. I'm not fair worry about getting nobody pregnant or if I go get an STI, you see me?
Well, the STI thing serious stills. Boy, the pregnancy thing, that'll go drain my energy.
Yeah, you would. No sexting around here, I was still saucy. You can try to in my G.
Fam, true. Margo Olaf.
Welcome back, guys. So my final question to you all tonight. What advice would you give to someone who is or having difficulties abstaining from sex? Miss Bolton, you can go ahead. Your mic is mute.
Oh, I'm sorry about that.
Yeah.
Persons need to be mentally, physically, and emotionally ready to indulge in sexual activities. If you're finding it hard to abstain, sometimes you need to remind yourself of the reason why you chose to abstain in the first place. Avoid situations where it will make it hard for you and you'll find yourself vulnerable and getting involved. You can also talk with persons that you trust for advice, someone who will be supportive, like maybe your pastor, maybe your mother, or somebody who you see as somebody of, somebody who you really look up to that you can share with. And get involved in activities that will deter you from being, sexually inclined. Also, think of the consequences of getting sexually active.
All right. Miss Davidson?
All right, so I would say that wouldn't be an easy rule. It's not an easy rule to abstain from sex. But if you have to do so, and if that's your choice, then I think you should to bring that energy to something else, like things that you never used to do for yourself. Like maybe you're a writer or something, and maybe could bring that energy in writing a book. Spend more time on you. Try to understand, all right, then this is what I want to do, and this is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm staying. So that is just my view on abstaining from sex.
Mr. Jamal?
Well, abstaining from sex. A person who finds him or herself in such a situation where it is hard for such a person to abstain need to be to stay away from situations that would allow him or her to fall into the temptation and then prolong the continuation of not being able to abstain, right? Some ways and methods an individual can do to abstain is be careful of what they watch on television that would turn on them sensually, right? And be careful of what they listen to. Be careful of what they read. Careful of what they look at. You know what I mean? It is hard, but I mean, we can control ourselves. We have to learn to have self-control, right? And that is my part on it.
Yes, so I hope that this advice can help someone who is watching today or listening to this program so that they can continue to abstain from sexual activities. So just to recap on what, our viewers we also have learned tonight, abstinent means...
Also,
go ahead.
When you have to be careful of the crowd that you hang out with. and the music that we listen to, because a lot of the music are sexually inclined. So we have to be careful of the songs that we find so enjoyable. So we cut out listening to some of these musics. We may not be able to avoid them totally, but to not entertain them within our own space.
Right. So as I was saying, just to wrap up, abstinent means one is not being sexually active with anyone, and it's not just only done for religious purposes, as we have learned in tonight's discussion. Other reasons, for example, not wanting to become pregnant or catching an STI or STD, and learn more about themselves and not be depressed about certain situation. So if you're in a relationship and you want to do something else, talk to your partner, go to the movies, go on a date. Like, the relationship doesn't have to be centered around sexual activities. So therefore, waiting on the right time, not so bad. Don't make the pressure to partake in sex drain your energy. Say no and we know sex can wait. So thank you all for coming and sharing tonight with us. Thank you, our viewers, for watching and listening to this episode. We'll see you back next week as we continue to discuss interesting topics on Caribbean Angles.